Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is Scott Stoltz, and here I am doing my formal opening. It's Habit. So I'm sitting here with the amazing Carolyn Bursky, and Carolyn and I just met recently. Did I say it right? Mm-hmm. Carolyn and I just met recently, so we'll get into a little bit more formal introduction shortly because I do want to share a lot about what Carolyn does. She's a coach. She does amazing work. I've gotten to know her a little bit in the last week and a half, and she's sharing more and more with me about her approach to who she helps and how she helps them. So we definitely got to share some of that.
Yep.
But Carolyn and I were just spending some time getting to know each other, and you hit on a topic that I love. The notion and the mindset of being open to what life presents you. So we'll tell some stories for some good context about that. Mm-hmm. But just to get the conversation rolling, from your experience and your history, like what does it mean to you to be open to what life presents?
Yeah, I think it kind of is synonymous with flexibility. So, not necessarily having to have the answers all the time, but being open to letting stuff come to you. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the time we feel like we have to be so right, or we get so stuck in one way of thinking about things that we don't have access to other potential possibilities, solutions, etc. And I think being open means literally just kind of signaling to the universe or whatever you want to call it that you're open to something else coming to you.
Yeah, and with me, and I mentioned this to you, that what would happen with me, typically what I would do is I would create expectations in my
Mm-hmm.
mind. And this is one flavor of being open, mm-hmm. but I would think about how something is supposed to work or should turn out. And I would literally envision, this is where I'll be, this is what's going to happen, this is who I'm going to be with, or even worse, this is what the person that's involved in that is going to do. And then anytime none of that worked out, even just a little bit, I would be disappointed. And that's a big lesson that I've learned recently was not creating this expectation of how something should happen, right?
Yeah,
does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of value in like visioning, right? Like that's definitely a really good exercise and something people do, like pro athletes do, and people do before going into board meetings, and like I do before traveling anywhere or whatever, like just visioning a super smooth, flight or drive or whatever. And but it's like visioning plus being flexible. Mm-hmm. So maybe exactly what you think should happen doesn't happen, but maybe something better is coming, and it's just you're not seeing it at that moment.
Right. So we have to talk about this more for a second, because you're right. I didn't connect that before you told me, and I know all about vision boards. Yeah. I did some Jack Canfield work online. I created a vision. This is a while ago. Mm-hmm. So, but that runs a little counter to what I just described, and I see the value in both mindsets. Yeah. Well, let's share that with people who watch this now and later. So you do vision board work, right, mm-hmm. with clients? Mm-hmm. So can you unpack that a little bit more? Like keeping people's expectations in check, but coaching them to really visualize how something's going to play out.
Yeah, so it's visualizing it, but a lot of it is like the feelings you're trying to evoke, right? So what I love about a vision board itself is that you are creating like a representation from magazines or photos you've seen, words you're cutting out that may or may not be the exact thing, but they evoke a certain feeling that you're trying to achieve, and a certain like energy that you're trying to achieve. So
by looking at that, and I don't know if, out of all the people who end up watching this video, how many people have done vision boards. It's a pretty well known concept. Yeah. I hear about it a lot. It's not about saying this is exactly how it's going to turn out. It's about creating something that helps you feel a certain way. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and saying like, this is generally what I would like to have happen. Like I would like to attract these things into my life. But for example, it may not be that specific cat, right? Like I did a vision board workshop. My friend like put a whole section with cats on it, and 2 weeks later, her boyfriend said for her birthday, like, we're going to get a cat, right? So, but that sort of thing, right? Like, I don't know specifically exactly what it's going to look like. And it's great to have visions like that, right? Like, I do that even within my business, but it's being flexible to, like, what else might appear that isn't exactly that, but evokes a similar feeling.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. That's good info. That's actually taking it a step further than how I looked at it and thought before. I just wanted to get it in my head. Like, this is what, like, for example, I want to live in Boston next year. I live in the burbs now. It made sense for my last job, but I want to live in the city next year. So I haven't done this yet, but I thought about getting a nice picture of one of the new skyscraper apartment buildings in the Seaport area and hanging it in my apartment. Because I wanted to see, hey, that's where I'm going to be next year. So I don't know what it would do for me from a feeling standpoint, but listening to you, it kind of makes more sense, like the deeper impact of a vision board.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I think, but again, like, you have that building, but you don't know what the apartment's going to be in that building, right? Or that they might build something else that's even better that you then are like, oh, I want that, right? I think it's like there is a lot of value in like picturing something going how you want it, but it's the like, okay, if that doesn't happen, being flexible and understanding that that just wasn't meant to happen in that point in time.
So we're going to talk about that. That'll be part 2 of this, but why don't we give people a flavor for what you do. So as I mentioned, Carolyn's a coach, and I'll let you share this, but you coach women in their 20s. So here, you unpack that a little bit. Share with people what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a life and career coach. I work mainly with women in their 20s, some early 30s. I really help them to gain the clarity and confidence they need to get unstuck, that you know, I don't want to call it quarter life crisis feeling, but that like my life is just not going how I thought it would. My career is not where I thought it would be. To gain that clarity and confidence to design what they actually want to see in their lives and get out of that I'm stuck in this forever and open their mind up to possibility and then helping them execute on those ideas that they have for themselves.
So that's awesome. That's great. That's so much value you provide to people at a time in their life when I would say, because I'm in my 40s, my 20s, when you're, and it's a cliche, but it's true, you're figuring a lot of stuff out, not just work, but life. Now my 40s, I know I'm ready. Like I've been far enough along in my career and life that I'm ready to do something like much more impactful. My 30s, I felt like I was, and I know you work with people in the earlier 30s, like I was pretty set. Like I was on a path that had some good stuff going on, and other than 1 year I spent time in New Orleans doing volunteer work after Katrina, but other than that, like I was always on a set path. So my point is, I think you're working with people at a really good time in their life when they are doing a lot of self-discovery, right?
Yeah, and it's a lot of like making sure that you don't wake up at 50 and be like, oh shit, the past 25 years just flew by and I am in a career that I hate or in, you know, not the right relationship or living in the totally wrong place for me. It's like this idea that the decisions you make now are impacting what happens to you in the future. Like your 20s isn't some time to just like screw around and like, you know, oh, it'll magically come together at 30. Like that's not how it works, no matter how much our culture tells us that. So doing that like soul work now is going to set you up for a more fulfilling future. And that can be fun now.
Are you, so you gave me a little bit of your background and your job. We don't necessarily need to get into all that here, but you clearly are a motivated person who wanted to go out and get a good career going. Are you particular in the type of people you work with? Like they have to be career driven, ready for change? Like are you selective with?
Yeah, I feel like that's naturally just who I attract to me. You know, I mean, a lot of the language I use on my website is like, you are ambitious, you are a go-getter. Like, you know, the people are self-selecting when they read that stuff, identifying with what I'm, you know, creating themselves as. I mean, you know, I spent most of my 20s dealing with exactly this same problem that I'm helping people with. So it's kind of like a younger version of me in a lot of
Such
ways.
a good fit.
Yeah, I mean,
who better to have help than somebody who just went through that?
Right, exactly.
So getting back to the being open, so let's talk a little bit about, just for the last couple of minutes of this, like what kind of, you don't need to be super specific, but what kind of challenges do you see girls in their mid to later 20s or early 30s who are a few years into a career? And, you know, they may know what they want, they may not know, they may be in a good position at work, they may not be, but that whole teaching that you do around being open to, listen, life's going to present a lot of great opportunities, or maybe some not so great, but be ready for that. Like, how does it apply to the work that you do?
Yeah, I think sometimes a lot of them feel really like stuck and almost pigeonholed into a career. Like, well, but all of my resume has been in sales, and I actually think that maybe event planning would be a better fit, but like, how do I get someone to hire me without having had event planning experience? And it's kind of re-looking at that as like, what skill sets do you have from these past jobs that actually make you very qualified for that? Like, they may seem different and are, the way companies talk about positions, like that is in marketing usually versus this is in sales, and those two things are often so siloed, but there's a lot of overlapping skills and strengths and traits in a person that you need to do both of those jobs. Mm-hmm. So it's a way to getting in touch with yourself, getting back to what you want, and then learning how to tell your story in a way that's going to get someone else to like understand why they should hire you.
I have to ask, is one of the problems, so you help people get that awareness of, hey, you're in this role, you might have a great set of skills and you could be great at this too, a lot of ways that you can position that. But is one of the issues confidence? Are people, and this,
Definitely.
Forget gender, but I mean all of us, I remember times where I just had no confidence in my ability to do something, but I was actually pretty good at it. So do you see a lot of that?
Yeah, totally. Confidence is a huge issue, and especially for people who just don't know what they want too. Like a lot of my clients, they're like, I'm stuck, but I have no idea what the heck else I should do, and therefore they don't feel confident trying to find another solution or putting themselves out there and like putting their resume in for some job because they're just like so unsure. It's fear and confidence.
That fear is the other big thing. If we ever do a part 2, let's talk about that, about fear and confidence and some of the things we need to do to build it. But I just have this, it must be really hard work what you have to do. And I mean this in the best of ways, because for somebody who's not sure what they want to do and they're lacking confidence, they might lack courage too to well, if they sign up with you, they have courage, they're making a decision to act.
Yeah.
But it's still hard work for you to like get them moving in that direction, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I love it so much that it doesn't feel difficult. And I think the clients that I attract are relatively self-aware people. I mean, they're willing to like invest in a life coach and do the work. But it's a lot of like helping them get rid of the noise of everyone else's opinions and getting back to who you are. Because once you get back into who you are and what makes you happy, why you are an important human on this earth, then the confidence comes. That then informs every other decision you make. And so often in your 20s particularly, it's like your parents have had all these ideas for you, school counselors have, career services, your major, right? Like there's all of these things being like, you should go into this path, and you're at a point where you like don't know what the other options are. So you're like, okay, and then all of a sudden you're like, this isn't the right path. Like this feels wrong, but everyone's telling me that it should be right. So it's like getting rid of that.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, I think if I had sat back and really thought it through, I might have come up with that one. But you're right. We're programmed too. It's all the voices you just said, and kind of from an early age, we're programmed to take a certain path, and this is what you do. And then you start hearing, oh, you're good at this. You should go be a such and such.
Right. Yeah. And it's like you go elementary school to middle school to high school to college, right? Is like the usual trajectory, and then it's like, okay, well now what? And there's so many options that it gets really paralyzing. So you go with the thing that people tell you you'll be good at because it's like, well, I don't want to fail, so I might as well go this route, or this sounds relatively interesting, I have no idea. And it's a lot of figuring out what doesn't work for you until you figure out what does work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So if you know any girls in their girls in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, and they're stuck or having other issues in their career or job, send them Carolyn's way. And Carolyn, why don't we wrap? You want to tell people, do you have anything big coming up, any new ventures for yourself, and then where can people find you?
Sure. So I am, biggest things coming up, I'm running 2 events next week for 2 different women's organizations, mainly for women in their 20s, early 30s, with 2 different organizations. You can get behind both of those on my website and Instagram and all of that. And I have a couple other new workshops and online course I'm kind of working on right now. A little more stealth mode, but those will come. And then if you want to reach me, my website is www.compassmaven.com. And then I'm at Compass Maven on Facebook and Instagram. That's the name of the business. So.
Got it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, note that, and Carolyn, we definitely have to talk some more.
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
your
Thank you
insight
so much
today.
for having me.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Yeah, it was fun to chat.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Check you
guys.
out later. Bye.